For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving, TV show hosting, hairy, true-blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weismuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast. Have you ever wanted some high-end products out in the woods? Look no further than our friends at R.W. Coolidge. They make duck straps, they make bags, they make gun cases. Whether you want canvas or leather, they got you covered. So for this hunting season, check out R.W. Coolidge for all of your needs.
Johnny boy, we're back. We're going to talk about ducks and flyways, Arkansas duck hunting that I did, about a week ago. And, we just got off the episode of wolf reintroduction. So now let's talk about their prey, from predator to prey. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, man, duck hunting can be a really fun time. If the weather up north is good, right, and there's not a drought going on, the flyways can be on fire. But here recently, we've kind of haven't seen that too much down south with higher temps up north and droughts going on. The duck movement has been a little slower than people like it to be.
Yeah. So I went and hunted Mississippi Delta about 3-4 weeks ago, and the most beautiful stand of flooded timber I've ever seen. Not a duck, man. And it's not because the land isn't good. It's not because the hole was shot out. It was all perfect. The fact is the ducks just weren't here yet. And I don't even know if they still are here yet. We had a pretty decent hunt there in Arkansas, but I'm not convinced that the migration has truly commenced just yet.
So what do you say to people that say, like, maybe the flyway's changing? I mean, is there any truth to that?
I think, us duck hunters can be a little superstitious at times. I think that, if the flyway's changing, then we wouldn't be shooting an 8-man limit of specs in Arkansas. Right? And there wouldn't be 4 flyways. I don't necessarily know because I'm not a biologist, but I don't know that it is. I think we just have patterns, like migration patterns that are the same as that coincide with the weather patterns. Not every year are we going to get a ton of rain. Not every year is it going to be super cold winter. We may have a super cold February and March, but, December, January is not cold at all. I think that the duck migration is solely dependent on the weather. Now, will they still migrate south? Yes, they will. They will still eventually make their way to Mexico, but if they don't have to leave, they're not going to.
So you talk about your spec hunt there for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of back up. I know you had a duck hunt a day or two before that. How was the duck hunt? I mean, I know y'all killed some, but it wasn't like just a banger of a hunt, right?
Yeah, so it was not a barn burner. We were with Burrus Bros Outfitters there in Arkansas, and let me tell you something. Those dudes are phenomenal. They have some of the best ground in the state. They have the 3 guides that I hunted with. Man, they were top shelf, top tier dudes. Phenomenal. I've known Hunter's dad for a long time, Mr. Blake, known him for years and years, and have a lot of respect for him. But they're one of those folks that have the really good ground. And we shot 14 ducks, but they were still a lot of stale ducks flying around too. We were hunting a buckbrush hole, and man, there was a pile of ducks that finished that we ended up shooting into. When I say a pile of ducks at this time of the year, I don't mean like 150, 200, 300. I'm talking like groups of 10, 5 and 10. That's what we got right now. That's what the migration has given us on that trip. That's what the good Lord has provided for us, was small groups, which is a lot of fun. We had shovelers, we had gadwall, teal, a few divers, and buddy, I tell you what, to be as stale as those ducks were, it was pretty amazing to sit there and watch these birds pile into our decoy spread. And all we were doing was running traffic. You know, the farm where it sits is right in between, or right next to the river. So all we're doing is running traffic off the river in that bottom. So, you know, it's a perfect location. They've done it right. They've done – see, that's the thing, you know, and I want to really preach this to the guys that are going out and doing guided hunts. The guide can only do so much. You can have the best land. You can have the best equipment. You can have the water. You can have all that stuff. But if it's 50 degrees in Wyoming, 50 degrees in Canada, guess what? They're not coming until it freezes. It has to freeze and the food has to go away for them to truly, truly migrate. I mean, right now, I looked at a study the other day that said that majority of our geese are sitting in northern Illinois to northern Missouri and a little bit west. That's where our birds are sitting right now. And, you know, some in Oklahoma. I mean, we were lucky on that goose spread, that goose feed. We found one huge goose feed, and it was, I mean, stacked with specks and snows. And I have to give a big shout out to Chase and Dalton for that because, man, we were riding with those guys, and they know those farms, and they know how to find the birds. And you know, that's what we did. We went and scouted, found them, and then we set up that night. You know, that's the cool thing is we went ahead and did the full decoy spread at night. You know, 800-900 speck and snow decoys mixed together. And that way that morning we didn't have to do anything. We just showed up and went hunting and had a ball doing it. Now, the bigger groups were not wanting to finish, but the 2s and 3s and singles and man, they were doing it right. I mean, they were just locking up in there, just shoom, 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 right in the decoys. And they got boom, so killed them all, Jack. Except there was a couple that we all missed on. Just a swing and a miss. Hey, that happens. That happens, man.
So let me ask you something here. Whenever you're talking about the geese finishing, I've always kind of wondered that, like, so why is it that is it that big groups don't really finish as often as groups of, you know, your 2s, your 5s, your 8s? Is that just because you only have to convince 2 or 5 versus convince thousands? I mean, is it just that, or I mean, is it a little more in depth?
Well, it's a little bit more. It can be that, but it's a little bit more in depth because you got to think of how many eyeballs are looking down on you. You know, and it depends on if there's a feed close by. Like for instance, for us, there was a huge spin and a feed literally the next field over. So a lot of those birds were going to that. You can't compete with that. I mean, you're not going to. You're never going to compete with a huge spin of snows and specks. You're just not ever going to truly compete with that. So, but now these specks were going back and forth. So the cool thing is we had a big body of water behind us, and that was their loafing area where they go and sit on the water, get something to drink, and then come to feed, yada, yada. So we were sitting in a dry bean field where they were coming to feed. And, you know, there was several juveniles in there, but there were also several full-blown barbellies in there too, which make me excited, John. I love barbellies because they eat really well. They're delicious. They're like the sandhill cranes, man. So good. Yee. Delicious. But yeah, so that's to answer your question. Circle back to the question now that I've, you know, danced around in a figure eight there. To answer your question, it is harder to land the bigger groups because they have so many eyeballs. They can see so well, especially in a weary snow goose, man. If you're not on the lessers, or when I say lessers, I mean like the Rossies and stuff like that, and juveniles, or hunting them in Canada, it can be tough to decoy snow geese because when you think about it, I mean, if they're traveling in a flock of 1,000 or more, I mean, that's a lot of eyeballs.
Oh yeah.
that are looking. And I mean, the spread has to be right. Everything has to be perfect. You know, they can't see these little pieball faces here. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot of factors you got to,
Mm.
and filming it too,
Otherwise,
man.
it's
You know,
over.
filming a hunt like this adds a whole new dynamic to it that normally you don't have because you have the glass lens that can also throw a reflection on it, or you know that little shimmer. So you have to be really cautious when you're filming these birds to do it in a manner that you don't flare them. So it's not like, oh wow, what was that? You just blinded me with that lens, you know, or whatever. They see something flash down there at the in the decoys because they know that's not correct.
Right.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, I've only been snow goose hunting once, and it was kind of the same ordeal. You know, you got your bigger groups that would always go to the live birds, and then you know, whenever groups of like 10 or less, we could usually work them.
Now, technically speaking, to hunt snow geese in the States, you're going to need about 1,500 to 2,000 decoys to hunt snows. I mean, to do it effectively
Wow.
in the spring, in February, to do that conservation season. But now, see, when you go up towards Canada, you can grab those full body SX decoys. You only need about 200 of them. That's the difference. That's the difference in them seeing
Really?
the spreads. Yeah, man. I don't know what it is. Like when they get to Canada, they're just like, oh, it's a free for all. But in the States, you know, they've seen everything, every single type of spread known to man in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy, but when the way they do it when they get to Canada, it's just unbelievable. But yeah, dude, SX decoys, man, they have some phenomenal gear there. Their full bodies look really, really, really real. They're very realistic. It brings them into spread.
So, do you like full body decoys versus like the sock?
It depends. You know, yes. Do I prefer the full body? Absolutely. Do I have enough space to haul 2,000 full bodies? No, I do not. So, but I do have enough space to haul 500 full bodies. So, what I like to do, since I can't haul all of them, is I like to do a mixture. You know, so you mix in full bodies with silhouettes and socks. So that way you have this big mixture of everything. And the socks give you a whole lot of movement, especially in the wind. I mean, it literally looks like birds down there feeding because they're constantly moving. And even in the slightest wind, they'll give you that little shake that you need to entice the birds. And that's another thing you got to, you know, put into this is the wind. You always have to think and look at the weather and make sure that you're going to have some kind of wind at some point, because when it's not windy, dude, those socks are just sitting there stagnant. All the decoys are sitting there stagnant. And that's another thing that plays into what you asked earlier about the geese decoying. That is a big deal when it comes to that, is the wind. So that's why I like socks. They flow in the wind very easily. You can hide in them, actually. So the full bodies are kind of harder to hide in. I mean, you can put mixed full bodies in, but when you're hiding in the actual decoy spread, I prefer socks, tall ones and short ones. So that way you can, you know, have a two-dimensional layer there of high and short. So it looks like the birds are kind of jumping over one another to get to the feed. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get those birds to think, oh, well, this is an aggressive feed. So we need to be in front of this. And in front of this is in front of our gun barrels. That's the point, is we want them to think, oh, we need to land at the head of this. And then when they do, they get shot in the face.
Yeah, that's right.
Boom,
It's
boom,
a good
boom.
time, too.
Oh, dude. It is so much fun, man. Time. Especially, so we were sitting in those, the decoys over there in Arkansas, and man, me and Chase were sitting on the right-hand side of the decoys, and Eli and Dalton were sitting on the other side. Me and Chase, I was filming these two geese flying across, and then I hear, oh, there's one of the decoys. I look down, I was like, holy crap, it's right here. So I just tilted the camera down and followed it all the way to Chase. I think it was so close. His shot was like a rifle bullet coming out of there. Thing laser beam. He ended up killing it. He did kill it. I was proud of him for that. That's a hard shot when they're that close and flying that fast with a laser beam. But he got it. He did. He got it. Man, it was awesome, dude. The lodge there is outstanding. The beds are comfortable. I slept like a tiny little baby. It was unreal, man. All the accommodations they had there. And just, how knowledgeable these dudes really are. And that really pays to know. When you go to a place, you don't want to get scammed or whatever. And I'm not saying every place does that, but there are some out there that are out there just to take your dollar. You got to be really careful. So I can honestly stand behind the Burrus Bros and give them a thumbs up because they did me right. Absolutely did.
Heck yeah. Well, man, that makes a big difference whenever people are looking to go to an outfitter for anything, whether it's ducks or deer or whatever. I mean, it's really nice that you can hear other people's testimony about it. Like, because, man, I would not go anywhere if you haven't, heard anything great about them, or if they haven't, been in business for too god awful long. I mean, you just got to be careful with those that like hardly have any reviews, and you just got to be real careful and talk to the owner and the guides and see what operation they got. But if you got a bunch of people saying that this outfitter's great and it's nothing but good experience, it just makes it a little easier to book with them.
Yeah, it does, man. And that's the thing is, if you just do your homework, you can find out what you need to find out about any outfitter. Because the ones that have
easily
are truly doing what they're supposed to do and doing it right, you can tell they have a good reputation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really doesn't take long to kind of see through the cracks of some people, but some people are really good at BSing. So you just gotta be careful out there. So let's I want to talk about these flyways for just a little bit.
You got it.
We kind of mentioned it earlier. I'm going to pull up a map here.
Cool.
Of these flyways.
Let's do it.
So
show me the flyways.
I know. Hopefully it pulls up here. So the bottom line, right, is you've got 4 major flyways, right?
That's correct.
The Pacific, Central, Mississippi, and the Atlantic. Okay?
Yes.
So that's the bottom line to the bottom line. So right now, this is what I'm want to kind of touch on here. Like, so if you look at some maps, they break it off by state. Like, so they'll say that Tennessee, right, is in the some say the Atlantic Flyway, some say the Mississippi. I would say more Mississippi, right, on the western Tennessee part, obviously.
I would say it kind of splits us in half.
Right. So I guess my thing is like, all what I wanted to show here was if you look at if you follow where most of the birds are, most of these dots on this map are, and you'll see, how far up north it goes, right? Whenever we're talking
Alaska,
about
baby.
Those higher, well, whenever we're talking about those higher temps, like, if it's not cold in North Dakota, they're not going to move down. If it's not cold in, Michigan or Iowa or whatever, so that really affects our hunting. Now, on a different flyway, let's just say, for example, on the Atlantic, like right now, my brother was driving from the bottom of Georgia where he lives
Mm-hmm.
to like the bottom of North Carolina, or the top of North Carolina, bottom of Virginia. And he does some duck hunting down there, and it's been pretty slow. And then he gets into South Carolina, and there's piles of them. And this is what I was explaining to him. I'm like, you're driving up the flyway, right? And it's just not been cold enough for them to get down to you yet. So, but it's cold in New York and Maine, right? So they've come down, but they've only come down to the Carolinas at the moment, right this very second. And when it gets cold there, they'll go down to Georgia. But for right now, they're not doing it.
Well, a lot of times, Georgia, you're going to get majority of your wood ducks. That's where you're going to kill a lot of wood ducks. Now, you can go on the coast and you can kill some divers, the canvasbacks, redheads, bluebills, all that kind of stuff. But inland, you're mainly going to shoot wood ducks. You're going to shoot some of those old black-bellied whistling tree ducks like your brother killed, and I'm envious because he's got a species that I don't have yet. Lucky rascal.
Dude, he's the luckiest guy alive when it comes to hunting, man.
Well, now that he's figured them out, we're going to go kill them next year.
Oh, yeah. Whether he likes it or not, I'll just pull up in his house and steal his boat. Say, see you later.
Well, we ain't even got to steal his boat. I got my own boat. Beat you to the hole, sucker.
That's it. See you, pal.
Oh man. And then we all jump in the boat together and high five and cook breakfast out there in the boat.
That's right.
So one thing I want to point out about this flyway, if you'll notice, they all start either in Alaska or Canada. They all fly through Canada. Every flyway comes through Canada. My point being is when you go up and you hunt Canada, they're like, I don't know what happens, man. These birds just lose their sense of give a crap. They just turn stupid. I've never seen anything like it before in my life, John. I mean, literally, when I was there 2 years in a row. When I went up there, it was unbelievable how it all happened, man. It was really crazy to see ducks land in one spin. Like you call it them one time, whack, 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 right straight down. I thought, don't happen like that. And then Alabama or Tennessee or Arkansas, you got to work for 45 minutes. Yeah, and we were in just a goose spread. Just a goose spread on a dry field, no water, until, we did hunt the potholes, which was super cool too, because it was like this tiny little pond wrapped in a barley field. So they land in the water and then walk up into the barley field and feed for hours. I will say, though, the barley fields, if they just harvested them, really tough to find birds if you don't have a dog, because they'll climb up in that barley row and hide. So you got to get on them pretty fast. But, man, I tell you, it's pretty neat to see how that flyway works and how majority of everything, actually, every bird in that flyway comes through some part of Canada. So it looks like a lot are coming through like BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario. And it's cool how the Atlantic flyway, some of it goes up into the Mississippi flyway, and the Central flyway, and they go all the way to Alaska together. So that's where we're having these problems with the snow geese, man. They're so overpopulated. They're destroying the breeding grounds, which is right up there in Alaska, in the tundra, in Canada, all those places where these ducks nest. Dude, those snow geese will go in there and wipe out a whole field, clean it out, no food. They just, it's unbelievable how much those geese can eat, man. And that's why it's so important. If you love conservation and love duck hunting, you better start shooting snow geese, because they're not the sole problem, but they are a problem for your nesting duck populations. And these coots too, man. Like, nobody shoots a coot, but guess what? A coot will terrorize canvasback babies and kill them. So it's like, hey, we got to do our part in conservation. And, if the limit on coots is 15, kill them. I mean, we got to do
Yeah,
something or they're
why
just
not?
going to get overpopulated. And then guess what? The canvasback numbers goes down. And then guess what? You don't get to shoot them anymore. That's how that works. If the population decreases, you don't get to shoot them anymore until the population comes back up.
Yep.
That's just the hard facts, man. And I love shooting canvasbacks. I love shooting geese, and I love shooting divers. I like shooting all of them. I'm not a purist by any means, but we have to do our part, and part of that is the land management and all that good stuff, like the guys at the Burrus Bros have done. But
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, it is going after like these snow geese and stuff that are detrimental to the breeding grounds, to the nesting grounds. We need to go in February, and I am going more than once, and I'm going to put a magazine extension on my shotgun, and I'm going to shoot 13 rounds at a time. I'm going to pull that
Mm-hmm.
trigger as fast as I possibly can until birds just rain out like gravy. It's going to be phenomenal. So
Yeah, man.
that's
I've got
that's my
to
little
go on
spill
another
on
goose
that.
hunt.
Yeah, because last time we had an epic goose hunt, killed 250 snows. You were sick with
I know.
COVID, and they were like tornadoing right in our face.
Yeah, I'm ready to go on one of those hunts.
Yeah, and I
Because
sent you a video.
I'm
I was like, bro, I wish you were here.
no, dude, it's terrible. But yeah, man, I've got to go. I got to get Dad out there, my brother out there. We got to go kill them all.
Yeah, well, I agree with that 110%. The Burrus Bros are the guys to do it with, too.
Well, perfect. Let's do it.
So, yeah, let's do it this spring. So the drought, man. We have had one heck of a drought this year. And it wasn't in the spring. So the crazy part is usually, or the year before last, it was in the spring and we didn't have much rain for the crops. This past year, man, we had one heck of a corn crop and a heck of a bean crop. And then it just quit raining. I mean, it quit
Yep.
and we didn't see rain for weeks. Well, guess what? That hurts the
Yeah.
Mississippi River. That hurts all your major flyaway rivers, the Ohio, all of them. The Illinois River, it hurts every single one of your majority flyaway rivers. Because when that gets so low, it's really hard to navigate it first and foremost. But then you see the reason why it really hurts is because the backwater doesn't come out and flood that timber and flood all this extra food source for these ducks. So you have to have that river to flood a lot of this stuff. And that's what these ducks are counting on. So, when they go into a rice field that's been pumped and they eat all of it, well, where do they go next? If there's no water, they're not going to be in the timber. So that's why this drought has really hurt us, is because there's not enough water, in the areas that it normally is, just based on the river levels.
Okay, so you're saying, bottom line, like ducks need water, right? Obviously, and you know, low water, not ideal at all, because then it it hurts where the ducks can be, and then it hurts your food, which in turn,
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's
hurts the
exactly right.
ducks.
Now, not everywhere are you going to shoot ducks on water. That's really more of a southeast thing. The flooded fields are more Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, that kind of stuff. When you get further
Louisiana.
west, yeah, Louisiana, the further
Mm-hmm.
west you go, the more potholes you hunt and dry fields that you hunt. But now, does that mean that ducks don't need water? No, it means that they go and feed in these dry fields and then they go to water to loaf in the middle of the day. So they're roosting and loafing on the water, and then they bounce back to the field to feed. They go back, loaf midday, come back to feed that afternoon before going to roost. So that is how that works out there. And dude, that is pretty awesome to shoot birds in your face on a dry field. It's pretty cool. But it's also cool to shoot them in water too. The water shots, man, are phenomenal, especially watching those dogs bring the birds back too. There's nothing like watching a good dog work well. That's the facts, Jack. That's an Uncle
You
Sauce
know, man,
segment.
I've always, like it. Again, being new into the waterfowl world, like, dude, if a duck dog, I mean, a really good duck dog, that's like a prized possession in the waterfowl world. And those dudes, man, if you're at a boat ramp and you see a dog, I learned real quick, do not pet the dog. It is not there as a cute little pet. It's there to work. It's got a job to do.
Yeah, so not everybody's like that, but there are a lot of people that are like that. It's like, hey, don't touch my dog. And I'm always like, yeah, man, you can pet that dog. They're gonna do what they're supposed
Yeah, I
to do
mean,
anyway.
not
They're part of
everyone,
the
but
family. You know, they're
I'd say
definitely part of
majority.
the family for us anyway. You know, I mean, I think that's the best way to do it is by, you know, making the dog part of your family, because then, you know, that dog is going to feel loved and it's going to do more for you rather than just being looked at as a machine.
Which makes sense. I mean, and now you've had a really awesome duck dog, right? Avery.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
explain to me, I guess, how you know, like what makes a great duck dog? Is it just really simple, like the dog that goes out and gets it? Or I mean, is it way more in depth?
Well, there's two different kinds of duck dogs, right? There's a meat and potatoes dog, which is what Avery was, and like a field champion. Avery was never a field champion. She would go get a duck, bring it back, and not break. She would sit right beside me, would stay, would listen to everything that I said, right? She never won a championship. She'd never done any of that kind of stuff. So that to me is more of the dog that I like, is the one that just does what I tell him to. You know, and the thing is I trained her myself from a wee little puppy in college, and we still got her today. She's a wonderful little buggy, and I wish I didn't have to. I wish I could have bred her before, you know, she had to get cut, so that way I could have a puppy off of her. That would be phenomenal. Because man, she's a 1 in a million kind of dog. I mean, a 1 in a million. I don't know if I'll ever have another dog like Avery. I don't know that I will, John. I mean, she was that kind of dog, man. Just phenomenal, well-minded. She broke one time a year in dove season because she got so excited she couldn't stand herself. You know, and that was it. The rest of the time, man, she was picking up birds that I didn't even know were there. Like, she'd go just missing in the bushes, and then I'm like, hey, get back here. She'd come back with a duck in her mouth. I was like, huh, all right, cool. You know, it's just,
Neato.
man, you know, it's little things like that that really make the difference in the duck dog, is being able to control it, number one. Because if there's one thing I cannot stand, it's a dog that breaks continuously and flares birds and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's like out in the decoys or past the decoys before you can even pull up your gun to shoot. Well, guess what? That just ruined your shot, because I don't like to shoot when a dog is in the decoys. So probably not going to shoot.
Yeah.
You know, and I do that out of respect for the guides too. You know, I mean, that's their dogs, you know. And I'm not saying their dogs break. I'm talking about shooting over a dog in the decoys. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that the guides' dogs broke. All I'm talking on right there is shooting over somebody's dog in the decoy spread. I try my best not to do that. So that's kind of a rule of thumb that you always need to know is don't shoot over the guide's dogs while it's in the decoys. Not a good idea.
No.
Yep.
And that's with any bird hunting, man. I mean, if you're upland bird hunting, it's the same thing. Like, yeah, just stay away from shooting over the dog. It's just best bet.
Just don't shoot the dog, man.
With that said, so I think that's really, I think I asked you everything I wanted to. I mean, we talked about your Arkansas hunt, right? We talked about your eight-man spec limit, which was awesome. Right, we jumped on the flyways and talked about the drought and the temperatures and things of that. So, man, I just hopefully it gets cold up north and the birds come down here and, you know, we have a great rest of our duck season.
I think we're at a good point to wrap it up. Folks, thank you for tuning in. And remember, we have a new merch shop. Go to rootedtelevision.com, click on shop, and it will take you for everything Rooted Television, Rooted Podcast. You can buy all your merch from there. And don't forget to go and like, subscribe, follow all of our socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of it. YouTube. Go follow us. Thank you so much. And Redneck out.
See y'all. Have a great rest of your duck season.
For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.